No more taxes on your hard-earned tips, Trump thundered, his hands slicing the air like a maestro conducting a symphony of applause. The crowd erupted. Confetti cannons burst overhead, raining rainbow-colored paper onto the delegates. Smartphones lifted, capturing the moment for Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. "This is for you, the forgotten Americans," Trump bellowed, milking the roar of the audience like a rock star. "You're finally free. Free to keep every dollar, every cent, every quarter you scrape from a tired tourist's wallet." The room trembled with euphoria. "USA! USA!" chants began, echoing off the mirrored ceilings. But amidst the frenzy, one face remained skeptical. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman from New York's 14th District, stood at the back of the room, her eyes narrowed into slits. She wasn't clapping. She wasn't cheering. Her gaze locked onto Trump like a hawk spotting prey, her mind racing through the 47-page budget annex she devoured the night before. Millions of waiters, bartenders, and Uber drivers across America watched from their living rooms, their eyes glued to screens as Trump's words ignited a spark of hope they'd thought was long extinguished. Could it be true? They whispered to each other. No more taxes? No more IRS audits? They imagined the stacks of cash they'd finally keep. Rent paid, kids fed, a night out without anxiety. They believed they'd finally gotten a break. But AOC had seen the fine print, the asterisk, the footnote 17B3 buried in Treasury Department jargon. She'd spent sleepless nights cross-referencing tax codes, her staff poring over spreadsheets until the fluorescent lights blurred into a migraine. This wasn't a gift. It was bait. A sugar-coated pill laced with arsenic, wrapped in the American flag, and served with a side of betrayal. As Trump handed a shamrock-painted microphone to a tearful WA waitress from Atlantic City, AOC's lips pursed into a thin line. She knew the truth. This plan wouldn't touch the 92% of tipped workers who got $50 or less in tips per week. It wouldn't shield them from the 2.13-hour base wage nightmare. What it would do was let billion-dollar corporations reclassify service charges as voluntary tips, untaxable, unaccountable, and pocketed by the shareholders of Hyatt and Marriott. The waitress's voice trembled into the mic. "Thank you, Mr. President. This means I can finally—" AOC's phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from her chief of staff. "Alex, we just ran the numbers. This gift costs $150 billion. Guess who's footing the bill?" The crowd roared louder, drowning out the sound of AOC's heart sinking. She scanned the room, her eyes locking onto Mnuchin's smug smile, the lobbyists high-fiving in the shadows, and Trump's gleaming eyes. Eyes that saw only one thing: victory. Millions believed they'd finally gotten a break. Little did they know, this gift had a poison pill, and AOC was the only one who'd read the label. The confetti settled, the cheers faded, but the countdown had just begun. The question wasn't if she'd exposed the scam. It was when. The Las Vegas Convention Center emptied, but the echo of Trump's promise lingered like a mirage on the Strip. No taxes on tips pulsed through the nation's veins, a seductive melody promising salvation to the forgotten workforce. Yet, beneath the glittering billboards and algorithmic headlines, a different story brewed, one of survival, not salvation. AOC slipped out of the ballroom, her heels clicking against the sterile hallway tiles. She ducked into a cramped holding room where her staff huddled over laptops, screens aglow with spreadsheets and IRS codes. "Alex, we mapped it out," her policy advisor whispered, eyes bloodshot from all-nighters. "This isn't tax relief. It's a Trojan horse." But to understand the trap, America needed to see the lives tangled in the thread of Trump's proposal. Meet Maria, a 27-year-old single mom serving $8 an hour coffee at a 24/7 diner in Brooklyn. Tips were her lifeline. $40 on slow Tuesdays, $120 on Friday nights when Wall Street suits spilled onto the sidewalk. After taxes, That $120 shrunk to $90. Rent, $2,800. Utilities, $300. Maria worked 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week, yet her 1040 forms told a different story. Low income, near poverty level. Across the country, in Vegas, Javier mixed cocktails under the fake sun of casino floors. His noon to midnight shift paid $2.13 an hour, but tips made up 80% of his income. Good nights, $300 in tips, subsidized the bad, $30 on a 3 a.m. slump. Trump's plan promised him $50, $100, free cash. But Javier's math didn't add up. He'd seen the fine print on his paycheck stubs. Employer FICA exemption equals $3,000 a year. That $3,000 was his boss's profit, not his raise. AOC's voice cut through the room, steady but urgent. This isn't about Vegas showgirls and $1,000 tips. It's about the 18-year-old bussing tables in Omaha, the Uber driver working triple shifts in LA, the nail technician, cashing checks at HR Block. Her staff nodded, feeding her data like ammunition. 60% of tipped workers are women, she recited from memory. 30% rely on those tips for rent, not extra spending money. The numbers painted a grim mural. $18,000 median income for waitstaff versus $65,000 for corporate accountants. 40% lacked health insurance versus 7% nationwide. And when illness struck, tips dried up. Savings? What savings? But Trump's team didn't sell this plan to Maria or Javier. They marketed it to the Wynn Resort's lobbyists, who drafted the language, word by word. Service charges are not tips, the fine print read. Auto gratuities? That's corporate revenue. In Trump's vision, only cash tips went untaxed. The $5 folded into a napkin, not the 18% auto added to your $200 hotel room bill. AOC's team highlighted a killer stat. 85% of tips in America's top 10 cities weren't cash anymore. They were swipe and forget charges on Amex cards, invisible to the waiter, but taxable to the IRS. Trump's plan let corporations pocket those billions, tax-free. The room fell silent. Outside, pundits debated. Is this populism or pandering? But AOC's staff knew the truth. This was rearranged deck chairs on the Titanic. The real question wasn't, will Trump give workers a break? But, who's really getting the life raft? As AOC absorbed the data, her jaw set. This fight wasn't about policy wonks or Senate amendments. It was about the 2.5 million workers watching from their kitchen tables, believing the American dream still existed. They weren't props for Trump's stage or AOC's congressional speech. They were the math. The proof. The reason this battle mattered. But just as the room buzzed with resolve, a Bloomberg terminal beeped. Mnuchin's quote flashed on screen. This plan will create a 5% GDP boost, all downside risks mitigated. AOC's eyes locked on, to those words, mitigated for whom? The clock ticked, the nation waited, and in that pause, AOC whispered a phrase her staff would repeat for months. This isn't just a tax plan. It's a blueprint for who America serves. But the real blueprint lay hidden, buried in Annex C, page 217 of the budget, a page Trump hoped no one would turn. Behind the gleaming Trump Tower facade, a different script unfolded, one of number crunchers, lobbyists, and backroom deals. The no tax on tips billboard promise was conceived not on Pennsylvania Avenue, but in a K Street conference room, where Mnuchin sipped scotch with CEOs of America's largest service chains. It began with a PowerPoint titled, Tipped Worker Reform, Revenue Neutrality Strategies. Slide 3 revealed the magic, $150 billion in corporate tax cuts over 10 years, disguised as worker relief. Mnuchin leaned over to Larry Ellison, Oracle, and said, We reclassify mandatory service charges as non-taxable tips. Your bottom line thanks you. Ellison smiled. Oracle's hospitality division, hotels, cruises, restaurants, raked in $20 billion annually, much of it from auto tips nobody ever saw. Now, that money flowed tax-free, like magic ink vanishing from a ledger. The team drafted exemptions like fine artists. Voluntary gratuities stayed taxable, cash in a jar. Mandatory service charges turned invisible. 18% auto-added to your $500 wedding reception. Translation: corporations kept the loot. Workers got, well, hope. AOC's team unearthed emails from Trump's transition period. Subject line: tipped income strategy. Input from Caesars Entertainment. Caesars CFO proposed, let us rebrand resort fees as hospitality enhancements. Bill it separately. Tax-free. Mnuchin greenlit it. Lobbyists high-fived. Meanwhile, on the Senate floor, GOP reps rehearsed their soundbites. This is about freedom. Workers deserve every dollar. But free, Dom had a price tag. $17 billion annually, slashed from IRS collections and tacked onto middle-class payroll taxes. AOC's policy advisor, Jake, pored over the Congressional Budget Office, CBO, forecasts. Alex, look at this, he whispered, sliding a printout across the table. Scenario 1. Workers gain $400 year, AVG. Scenario 2. Corporations save $12 billion year. The math stank of betrayal. But the poison pill wasn't just about numbers. It was psychology. Trump's team banked on American amnesia, workers forgetting, or never knowing, how taxes worked. Few realized tips were already exempt if reported. Few grasped the 2.13 per hour base wage scam. Trump's plan exploited that ignorance. One name kept surfacing in AOC's investigation. Neil Patterson, former CEO of Cerberus-backed Restaurant Brands International, Burger King, Popeyes. Patterson donated $1.2 million to Trump's 2024 campaign. Now his lobbyists advised Treasury on implementation guidance. A Cerberus memo surfaced. Eliminate tip reporting thresholds. Let franchisees self-classify service fees. Translated. Burger King franchise owners breathed easy. No more $5,000 tip reporting audits. No more worker complaints. As AOC's team assembled the mosaic, a chilling pattern emerged. Trump announced no tax on tips in Las Vegas, casino hub. Mnuchin vacationed at Maui resorts, hospitality giants. GOP pushed the bill in election year districts, waitress-heavy demographics. It wasn't governance. It was targeted marketing. Workers were the demographic. Corporations were the customer. AOC's voice dropped to a growl. This isn't populism. It's predation. They sell the dream, buy the silence, and pocket the savings. Her phone buzzed. Rachel Maddow's producer texted, AOC, we got the Cerberus memos. Airing tonight. You ready for this? AOC's reply, bring it. The nation needs to see the asterisk. The cameras rolled. MSNBC's Chiron flashed. Tax Scam 2024. Insiders reveal Trump's real agenda. The Twitter sphere ignited. Hashtag tax the rich trended alongside hashtag not my gift. But in the Trump Tower, a different alarm blared. Mnuchin glanced at his watch. It's leaking. Contain this. Now. Too late. The playbook was exposed. The nation was about to discover. This gift came with an invisible price tag, paid by the worker, signed by the CEO. The clock struck midnight on Trump's promise, and AOC stood watch, ready to turn the page. The Bronx streets where Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez grew up knew no glittering ballrooms or tax-exempt tips. Her neighborhood breathed struggle, 8-hour jobs, food stamps, and Medicaid lines. Her mom, Celia, cleaned hotel rooms for $12 an hour, Tips pooled into a jar labeled Alex's College and Community College on a Pell Grant. She knew the 2.13 as hour wage, the IRS audits, and the tips that never came. AOC's journey began not on Capitol Hill, but bussing tables at Taqueria Fresno in Manhattan. Minimum wage, pooled tips, and constant anxiety. Will I make rent this month? She saw friends slip into homelessness, others into predatory payday loans. The American dream felt like a mirage, shimmering in speeches, vanishing in paychecks. But her mom's words fueled her. This country wasn't built for us to fail. It was built for us to fight. AOC fought. She organized union drives at Silver Cup Studios, where Sex and the City was filmed. She rallied against gentrification in Jackson Heights. By 25, she was a community organizer, not a politician. Then, in 2018, something snapped. AOC read the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, TCJA, the same bill now weaponized by Trump's team. She saw 98% of benefits went to the top 1%. The tipped worker relief? A footnote. AOC's voice cracked. This isn't tax reform, it's robbery. She ran for Congress on $20 donation, door knocking in Spanish, and debating in church basements. Her slogan? We are the ones we've been waiting for. On primary night, she unseated a 10-term incumbent. The nation watched. Who is this bartender turned congresswoman? Fast forward to the House floor. AOC grilled Treasury Secretary Mnuchin. You wrote the TCJA. Where's the worker relief? Mnuchin stuttered. AOC's data sliced through rhetoric. Your plan funnels $2 trillion to corporations. Tipped workers? $400 crumbs. Democrats gasped. GOP reps scribbled furiously on notepads. But AOC's power wasn't just facts. It was empathy. She humanized the stats. Her friend Lisa, a Vegas cocktail server, defaulted on student loans because tips dipped in slow seasons. Her neighbor Jorge, an Uber driver, worked 90-hour weeks but lost his home to a $400 tax bill. Her mom, still cleaning hotel rooms at 65, whispered, Alex, they don't care about us. They care about their donors. This wasn't textbook economics. It was lived experience. AOC turned hearings into town halls, inviting Maria, the Brooklyn waitress, and Javier, the Vegas bartender, to testify. Their stories shattered the no tax on tips fantasy. Sir, I make $180 a week. After taxes, $140. That's not freedom. That's barely survival. Maria. I wish tips were taxed less, but my boss needs to pay me $15 an hour first. Javier. AOC wove their testimonies into legislation. The Raise the Wage Act, the debt-free college promise. She didn't just oppose Trump's plan, she preached an alternative gospel. Wages are not tips. Dignity isn't charity. The establishment whispered, AOC is too radical. But radicals don't get $5.4 million in grassroots donations. Radicals don't fill 15,000-person town halls. AOC embodied the fire the nation needed, a fusion of policy wonk, community organizer, and daughter of immigrant dreams. As cameras panned to her during Trump's address, AOC's eyes locked onto the teleprompter. She mouthed a phrase she'd repeat for months. The opposite of poverty isn't wealth. It's justice. Her staff called it the AOC effect. Workers sharing stories, tagging her in tweets, DMing their 1040 forms. You're the first politician who gets it, wrote a server from Atlanta. AOC replied, We're not just fighting for tips. We're fighting for a country that sees you. Mnuchin sneered. AOC's just a bartender with an attitude. But in that moment, America saw a warrior, forged not in privilege, but in payroll deductions, late-night shifts, and the IRS's cruel arithmetic. The nation asked, Can one congresswoman take down Trump's tax scam? AOC smiled grimly. She wasn't alone. Behind her stood Maria, Javier, and 2.5 million workers whispering the same truth. We are the economy, not your donors, not your friends. Us. The battle wasn't won, but the hero had arrived, and Trump's team trembled. The gauntlet thrown, AOC, confronts GOP on the House floor. The House chamber pulsed like a courtroom on trial. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez stood alone at the microphone, flanked by 20 GOP reps, their faces a mosaic of entitlement and anxiety. Chairman Scalise banged his gavel. Order! Congresswoman AOC, you've requested a special hearing on the no tax on tips plan. Proceed. AOC's voice sliced through the partisan air. This isn't about tips. It's about who we serve. Workers or Wall Street. She clicked a remote. The chamber's screens flickered to life. Tipped workers' reality. $18,000 median income. 40% lack health insurance. GOP Rep. Kevin Brady, TX, sneered. This plan puts cash in workers' pockets. Trump delivers. AOC turned, eyes locked on Brady. Show me the workers' 1040 form. Show me their W-2. Because every spreadsheet my team ran says otherwise. Brady hesitated. Mnuchin, seated behind him, scribbled a note. Stall. Pivot to class warfare. Brady obliged. AOC just wants to take everyone's tips away. Socialist agenda. AOC smiled dangerously. Let's talk about your agenda, Congressman. You voted for the TCJA, $2 trillion in corporate tax cuts. Guess who paid for that? The chamber leaned in. GOP reps shifted uncomfortably. Tipped workers aren't abstractions, AOC continued. They're your constituents. The waitress in Odessa, TX, who works 12 hours a day but can't afford insulin. The Uber driver in Houston sleeping in his car because tips dried up. She named names, districts, and real-life struggles. The room felt every word. Suddenly, Rep. Steve Scalise, LA, interrupted. That's not what this bill says. You're misrepresenting. AOC cut him off, voice rising. No, I'm representing the fine print you omitted. Service charges? Tax-free for Caesar's Palace. Cash tips? Taxed like welfare for the waitress. The chamber erupted. Democratic reps nodded, hands scribbling furious notes. GOP reps shouted, That's not true! Chairman Scalise banged his gavel, futilely trying to restore order. OC dropped her bombshell. I have the Cerberus memo. Neil Patterson, CEO, Restaurant Brands, wrote it. Reclassify tips as non-taxable income for franchisees. She uploaded the PDF to the House server. Screens flashed. Exhibit A, Restaurant Brands International Lobbying Disclosure. The room fell silent. Mnuchin's face turned ashen. Patterson's $1.2 million in Trump donations now glared like a smoking gun. Repetier Elise Stefanik, NY, stammered. This is a partisan attack. AOC turned, icy calm. No, Congresswoman. This is a math problem. Your donors win. Workers lose $17 billion annually. Care to explain that in your next town hall? The verbal gauntlet thrown, the chamber descended into chaos. GOP reps marched to the microphones, only to be recognized too late. Democrats cheered, phones lighting up with tweets. Hashtag AO's exposed, the lie.C-SPAN cameras panned to the audience. Rachel Maddow nodded. Chris Hayes scribbled breaking on his notepad. In the melee, AOC stood firm. Not a single note in her hand. Every stat memorized, every lie anticipated. This wasn't politics. It was mathematical warfare. As the gavel banged for adjournment, AOC delivered her mic drop line. The opposite of a tax break isn't a tax hike, it's fairness, and America deserves better than Trump's shell game. The room emptied. Mnuchin rushed out, phone glued to his ear. Damage control. Spin this as AOC's wild accusations. But the spin doctors knew. The narrative had shifted. No longer Trump helps workers. Now, AOC holds Trump accountable. Outside, Maria, the Brooklyn waitress, watched on her tablet, tears streaming. She's talking about me, about us. Javier, the Vegas bartender, texted AOC, "Gracias, Alex. We see you." The battle raged on Twitter. Tax Scam 2024 trended. Memes of Trump serving free tips to billionaires circulated. Late-night anchors cued monologues. AOC just schooled the entire GOP again. But in the shadows, Trump's team plotted revenge. A whisper campaign began. AOC's just jealous. She's never run a business. The counterattack loomed. AOC smiled grimly. She'd expected it. After all, the truth hurts most when it's told by the unbuyable. The mic drop, AOC, unleashes the budget math. The House chamber reconvened, tension simmering like a pot about to be oil over. AOC stood at the podium, notepad empty, eyes locked on the Treasury Secretary Mnuchin. Chairman Scalise droned, "Congresswoman, you've made allegations. Now prove it." AOC smiled. "I have 47 seconds of your time, Mr. Chairman. Let's start." She clicked a remote. The chamber's screens flickered to Budget Breakdown, No Tax on Tips Reality Check. Slide 1, Revenue Streams. AOC's voice sliced through the room. Under Trump's plan, corporations save $50 billion annually. Guess where that $50 billion comes from? The screens displayed parallel columns. Workers lost tips. $17 billion, IRS collections. Corporate tax cuts, plus $50 billion, new exemptions. Middle-class payroll taxes, plus $12 billion, new burdens. Mnuchin's eyes darted left and right, searching for an escape route. GOP reps scribbled furiously, but the numbers refused to lie. Slide 2. Auto gratuities exposed. AOC's finger traced the data. In top 10 U.S. cities, 85% of tips aren't cash. They're auto-added charges. $18 on your $120 hotel bill, $5 on your $35 Uber ride. Visuals flashed. Caesar's Palace, $500 million year, untaxed hospitality fees. Marriott. Hotels, $300 million year, ditto. Starbucks. Service charge, $100 million year. Yep, coffee tips. The room gasped. Representative Jim Jordan, OH, muttered, "This is cooked data." AOC turned, deadly calm. "Congressman, this is the CBO's math, not mine. You can download the report yourself." Slide 3. The workers' share, or lack thereof. AOC's voice dropped to a growl. "Now, let's talk about Maria, the Brooklyn waitress making $180 a week. Under Trump's plan, she keeps $12 more per year." The screen displayed Maria's hypothetical 1040 form. Gross tips, $9,360, taxable income, pre-Trump, $7,200, taxable income, post-Trump, $7,088. The chamber fell silent. Even GOP reps couldn't argue with the arithmetic. Slide 4. The CEO's bonuses. AOC's final dagger. Meanwhile, CEOs of these corporations see $5 million average raises. Neil Patterson, Restaurant Brands, just got a $10 million stock bump. Care to guess why? The screens showed Neil Patterson, CEO, RBI, plus $10 million, 2024 bonus. Larry Ellison, Oracle, $20 million, hospitality division windfall. Caesar's Palace owner, Apollo Global, $50 million, untaxed tips exemption. Mnuchin's face turned beet red. Scalise shouted, "That's enough! You're twisting!" AOC cut him off. "No, Chairman. I'm translating the budget into English. This isn't tax relief. It's Wall Street welfare." The chamber erupted. Democratic reps leapt to their feet, applauding. GOP reps stormed the aisles, shouting, "Point of order!" C-SPAN cameras captured it all, AOC standing tall, arms crossed, as if daring them to dispute the math, the mic drop moment. AOC delivered her closing line, voice booming through the microphones. "The numbers don't lie, but Trump's team hoped you wouldn't look. Now you have. The question isn't, will you trust us? It's, who do you serve? Workers or billionaires? The choice is clear." The room dissolved into chaos. MSNBC's Rachel Maddow tweeted, "AOC just dropped the hammer. Budget math doesn't lie." Twitter ignited. #OC schooled them trending worldwide. Late-night anchors queued up monologues. Tonight, AOC didn't just debate. She solved the math problem the GOP couldn't. Backstage, Mnuchin fumed. "This is it over. We'll discredit her, leak radical tax plans." But the leak had already backfired. AOC's team had anticipated this. They'd pre-released the budget annex to Rachel Maddow. The Washington Post headline screamed, "AOC uncovers $150 billion tax loophole for corporations." As AOC walked off the floor, workers' faces projected on the LED screens behind her. Maria, Javier, Lisa, all smiling, all nodding. The message echoed, "We see you, we believe you, and we won't let them lie about us." But in the shadows, a final plot twist brewed. Trump's advisors whispered, "Time to unleash the media machine. AOC may have won this battle, but we'll win the narrative war." The clock ticked. The nation waited. And AOC stood watch, ready for the next salvo. AOC exposed the lie trends. Globally. The House floor emptied, but the real battle had just begun. AOC's mic drop detonated a social media earthquake. AOC exposed. The lie trended on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok within minutes. Rachel Maddow's tweet, "AOC just dropped the hammer. Budget math doesn't lie," racked up 5 million views, 200,000 retweets, and a sea of fire emojis. Celebrities weren't far behind. Rihanna. Yaz, AOC. Exposing the scam for what it is. Jay-Z. When the numbers don't add up, call out the CEO, #tax the rich. Chrissy Teigen. AOC just high school mathed the entire GOP fact. Tips aren't a handout. They're a wage gap. But the real victory wasn't clout. It was the people. Maria, the Brooklyn waitress, live-streamed her reaction on Facebook. "I cried, y'all. She talked about me, about my 213-hour wage, about the tips that barely pay my rent." The video amassed 1.2 million views, 40,000 comments, and a flood of DMs. "Maria, you're not alone." Javier, the Vegas bartender, uploaded a TikTok. "AOC just saved my job. Explained why no tax on tips is a lie. Share this with your server friends." His 30-second clip racked up 8 million views, 300,000 shares, and a chorus of hashtags. #servers unite, #fair, wage now, the Twitterverse erupted. Uber driver 2000. I work 90 HRs week. Tips barely cover gas. AOC gets it. Trump doesn't. Mom of 390. Just explained mandatory service charges to my kids. They're 8, 10, and 12. They understand greed better than Congress. At Waitress Life. AOC didn't just speak truth. She gave us a voice. Retweeting till it reaches the last tipped worker. MSNBC, CNN, and BBC queued up AOC segments. The math whiz of the left. AOC's budget takedown. From bartender to budget boss. The New York Times editorial board wrote, "In a battle of wits and numbers, AOC left the GOP speechless. For once, facts won, but not every," one cheered. Trump's media machine roared to life. Fox News, "AOC spreads misinformation, hurts workers. Newsmax. Radical Congresswoman attacks small businesses. Trump's Twitter. Sleepy AOC doesn't understand how great no tax on tips is for America. Fake stats. Fake news. The backlash was expected. AOC's team had a counter-strategy. Fact sheets, downloadable PDFs, circulated on WhatsApp groups. Infographics. AOC explained the math, shared 2 million times. Live streams with AOC, Maria, and Javier debunking myths. The nation debated, argued, and shared. Reddit, Our Politics, blew up. 10,000 comments on AOC dismantles GOP tax plan with actual math. YouTube tutorials popped up. AOC's budget breakdown for dummies. 1 million views overnight. The global ripple. BBC World. U.S. Congresswoman AOC forces reckoning on tipped wages. Al Jazeera. AOC's viral moment. Can she shift global labor narratives? Le Monde, France. L'Amérique découvre les maths d'Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But amidst the noise, a quieter revolution brewed. Workers shared their stories. A server from Atlanta posted her 1040 form. Tips, $12,000. Taxes, $2,500. An Uber driver uploaded his weekly earnings, $250 tips, $1,800 expenses. A nail technician cried on camera, "I thought tips were my safety net. Now I know they're a scam." AOC's inbox overflowed with messages. "Alex, I'm a teacher. I never knew tips were taxable. Can you fight for us too?" "Congresswoman, my mom works 3 jobs. This is her moment. Thank you." AOC, run for president. We'll donate $10 each. The trend didn't fade. It evolved. Hashtag fair wage now merged with hashtag tax the rich. Petitions sprouted. Raise the Wage Act. Sign now. Local rallies planned. AOC's army takes D.C. But Trump's team sensed danger. Their pollsters whispered, AOC's approval plus 8% this week. Trump's plus 2%. She's the new narrative. The counterattack loomed. Disinformation campaigns, paid influencers, and a manufactured scandal brewing in the shadows. AOC's advisors warned, "This isn't over. They're coming for you." AOC smiled grimly. She'd fought tougher battles, in union halls, town halls, and late-night shifts. The nation watched, waited, and wondered, what's the next move? The answer arrived via text from Rachel Maddow. AOC, the real expose drops tomorrow. You ready? AOC replied, Bring it. The truth has no off switch. Section 8, Reframing the Narrative. AOC's moral checkmate, 700 words. The storm subsided, but the calm was deceptive. AOC stood before the House, flanked by Maria, Javier, and a dozen tipped workers. Chairman Scalise glared. Congresswoman, you've caused enough chaos. Time to apologize.